All right, welcome to the Validator community call. Yep, I'm sharing my screen. Okay. So the agenda today, we're going to do some Validator updates. I'll recap the educational workshop a little bit and hopefully get a little bit of feedback. Talk about meeting up at Breakpoint if validator operators are planning to go to Breakpoint. Ideally, I'd like to have some sort of informal meetup somewhere there just to put a name to a face and meet people in real life. I've never been to Lisbon or to Breakpoint last year, so if anybody has ideas, recommendations, even if it's just like a park or somewhere that makes sense, happy to kind of push off the coordinating duties to someone else because I'm pretty busy this week. So any help on that front would be great. And then to finish it off, we've got the Squads protocol team. They're going to talk about their multi-sig solution for validators and get some feedback for what they're building. Okay, let's get going. So as of about 2 minutes ago, we pushed the ask for people to upgrade from 1.13.4 to 25% of stake on the cluster. So right now we're at about 7% of stake that's on 1.13.4. If you're able, please upgrade and we can test out turning off the UDP port. So for those who don't know, the main change in this upgrade to 1.13.4 is turning off UDP for the TPU port by default. So Quick will be the only way to communicate on TPU once that's off. So once we get that to 25%, we feel good about it. We will most likely go up to 100% and get rid of UDP entirely, which is a huge win, right? For those of us who've been here for a bit, yeah, we'll be on Quick fully at that point. Yeah, Zentetsu, go ahead.
So you said that's the only change for 1.13.4 is the disablement of that?
The main change. There might be a few other things.
Because some of us have firewalled our UDP TCP port anyway, so it's basically the same effect.
Right, yeah.
Upgrading just for that wouldn't potentially be worth it.
That is true, right? It should be a pretty minor change other than that. Let me double check the release notes actually. Oops.
But you still have to test the code out, right? It could be different than just a firewall, right? If they're actually
but I expect anyone running it is testing the code. Like this concept of the entire cluster, we need to test how the whole cluster works when UDP is not being used is satisfied also by blocking that port for what it's worth.
If people can block the ports correctly.
How are you going to block? How do you block the UDP port if Quick uses UDP too, right? It's the same port numbers.
No, it's a different port.
Oh, different port numbers. But it's still UDP, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, Quick is built on top of UDP, and there's another port that's used for Quick connections.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a back port of one change for known validators, but yeah, I think you're right. The main change is just turning off UDP. So make your own decision, but we'd like to get more of the cluster up to that. So if you're willing and able to monitor and test, please upgrade. All right, and 1.14.6 is recommended for testnet as well. Long list of changes there. I won't go over all of them. Honestly, I didn't have time to get in depth on all of them. Check out release notes. I believe pretty soon we'll also make that a minimum requirement for the delegation program. So if you haven't upgraded, I'd recommend upgrading. All right. Yeah, any questions about those updates before I move on to the next section? Okay. All right. Yeah, I wanted to recap the educational workshops we did. Sorry, my dog is barking in the background. So we did a series of 3 classes, workshops, and the topics covered were key management, some just background on rewards and withdrawing, We did a little bit about restarting and upgrading efficiently. And the last one yesterday was on monitoring and metrics. Generally, I'm pretty happy with how it went. I thought, especially in the last one, there was a lot of good participation. So I want to keep this going, but I'm curious if anybody has feedback or ideas on ways to make this more valuable for everyone in the community. Anybody? Anybody who went to the workshops just want to give an idea of maybe what you got out of it, or something you'd like to see differently, done differently?
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to talk about this stuff that we don't, I don't know, normally we do in our own isolation, talk about how people do restarts. And I mean, yeah, it was good. Actually, I learned a little bit about that validator exit. Never used it before. Using it now.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, maybe it's just my perception, but I have a feeling that people are a little hesitant to talk on this call, which, I would like to change that, but I think this is a forum where it's a lot easier to get engaged and to ask questions that maybe you might think that other people already know the answer to, but I guarantee you a lot of people don't. So more of a safe space to talk about just kind of, what you're struggling with and how to improve as a validator. Yeah, cool. Yeah, there's a comment in messages saying it would be great to go through the public Grafana and talk about kind of what all of the graphs mean and how to interpret them. I would love to do a workshop on that as well. So yeah, if anyone also is interested in teaching or just, kind of showing their processes, that would help a lot. I think generally speaking, it benefits everyone when validators improve, right? If we have a cluster that's working better, if we're working on, better processes and we're less susceptible to security issues and to, just other avoidable mistakes, the cluster is going to get better as a whole. So,
Tim, if I can give one piece too, I think for me it was really useful because there's a lot of guides out there in the world, and you're maybe reading stuff that's maybe not the most up to date, and so it was nice hearing things that is current because you're giving some of that thing. So it was a nice reinforcement, but also really helpful just knowing that it's in the now and it's actually being used versus kind of picking from like 4 different guides and finding the best way to set your validators and maintain certain pieces.
Cool, thank you. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna take a pause on these workshops until after Breakpoint and figure out what the right cadence and format is. But like I mentioned, any feedback would be really appreciated. There's also a feedback form in the validator announcement channel. So even if you didn't go to the workshops, feel free to go in there and just, give me your thoughts if you want to give me feedback that way. Okay, yeah, I mentioned this at the beginning, but kind of want to open it up to see if people are interested in meeting up in Breakpoint and if people have any ideas.
I haven't looked. So I've been to Lisbon quite a few times. I haven't looked at where all the. So last year, Breakpoint was split in like a lot of different areas. So like across the city. So it would take 30 minutes, 45 to get to the different venues. So I'll look at where they are this year and see where it's most likely that people will be able to meet up.
Sam, I'll be there as of the 1st. I'm gonna have kind of a tight schedule, but if you want me to look at any places while I'm there to see if like they have space, just drop me a line.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, any sort of coordination or just even, finding a place or two that I can call and try to coordinate with would be great, because I really don't have a good sense of the city yet. Steve made a comment in the chat there. The other backport that I mentioned will be helpful for the case when nodes have downloaded snapshots. It helps avoid the situation where a node has to catch up from 100s to thousands of slots behind because it fetches a full snapshot, but not an incremental. obviously no gain for nodes that are not fetching snapshots on restart, which is probably a lot of you. But another thing that could be helpful if you ever do have to get a snapshot. All right. And that's all I got. Any questions on anything before I turn it over to the squads team? No. All right. I'll stop the share and let you all take over.
Thank you, Tim. Nice to meet everyone. That's the first time we're actually joining the call. I'm Stepan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Squads. We also have Danny and Sean on the call. They're also both co-founders. Just to give you like quick background on Squads, it's the multi-sig infra for Solana. We've been building on Solana for a while. Our multi-sig standard is audited by Brahma Systems, not our SEC. It's written on Anchor verified. We're currently working on formal verification together with our SEC to formally verify it. We mostly work with DeFi protocols and infrastructure projects today, and they rely on Squads for treasury management or program management. And as we started talking to more of those teams, we realized that a lot of them actually have spun up their own validators, and they need to interact with them and manage them, and they showed interest in doing that via multisig. And so today, for them, multisig is this kind of like a hub where they manage various types of launching assets that includes treasury, that includes their upgrade authority to the program, and now also the validator. And so we have a part of the app that's called the transaction builder that is like very agnostic, where you can create a custom transaction populated with arbitrary instructions. And G2 Labs and some other more sort of advanced teams that also have their own validators started, using the transaction builder to interact with vote and stake program to manage their own validators. And we built initially custom templates for them, so it will be easier. And we realized that the demand for that is actually higher, that there are more teams that have validators. So we actually are spinning out this part of the app into a separate section. We call it Validator Manager. And Sean will walk you through the UI for it. But basically the idea that we sort of realized we can also come to you guys and offer the infrastructure that we have as well, and kind of show you the product experience we're thinking about for that flow, and see if that fits your needs, if you feel like there's something you might be able to use, and any sort of feedback that you can give us, that would be also great. So that's sort of that's why we're here. I think I can ask Sean to continue from here and just share his screen and do a small demo.
Yeah, hi everyone. We were really excited to see so many players in the validator community show interest. So it's great to be here and show our faces, and I'd love to be involved in these moving forward. Yeah, so just to give you a quick little recap, it started off with a few teams and projects, and effectively what we had started with was something very simple, which was just including some pre-baked templates for what would need to be done, whether it's stake program or vote program. Deactivate and withdraw started off as the basic instructions that we were working with. And then as we got more feedback, we realized that there was a good opportunity here to build a more comprehensive solution for this. So I'm going to step through what we're envisioning right now. Could also be really beneficial. Maybe we get a Telegram group going. Would love to open it up for any feedback. And what we're proposing to do is effectively, let me switch my tab here. Similar to what we do with programs, we want to add a dashboard here where you can drop in your validators, the vanity key or validator key appropriately, and whether or not you need a CLI command to transfer the authority. If you want to do a checked authority transfer, we do something very similar with programs where we do some hand holding there. If you don't want to do it through the command line effectively, and we could do a little description here. This ultimately will be a transaction on behalf of the multi-sig that would need to be approved, but effectively, just like any other transaction, it gets executed, and then we're envisioning this one-stop shop for all of your validators. And we also run our app across DevNet, testnet, in addition to mainnet, so you'd be able to see everything that's going on here and interact appropriately. I don't think we could do everything, but one of our goals is to get as much of the CLI as possible that would make sense into this. The things that are, most in demand for, hey, we're doing this all the time. We're moving funds around for this. We're changing commission. We want to change authority. And the goal here being that we are alleviating the need for one key or one ledger. And now you have a team that could appropriately manage it through a multi-sig. So it would look something like this. And we're open to, what kind of data is relevant here. Would love feedback on that. I could select the validator and some perceivably common instructions that would be needed if you needed to change authority to something else, or
Sean,
you want to withdraw.
sorry to interrupt. I think there's a question in the comment that's about the process of adding a validator to the application. Can you walk through that a little bit?
Well, can I ask the very specific question, please? I'm not familiar with your application. When I add my validator, what happens to my withdrawal authority exactly?
So nothing happens until you change it to your multi-sigs authority. So when we add a validator here via the UI, we're effectively just creating an account on chain that says, here's a validator, give it a name, give it some kind of metadata, and this way we could display it appropriately for you on chain. Nothing actually happens until you move your authority to the squad's authority. In which case, after doing,
is that a program, or is that ostensibly it's an on-chain program that becomes the authority?
It's a PDA. It's a PDA that's
right.
Effectively an authority derived from squads.
And that program is owned, managed by you guys, upgradable, not upgradable? What's the situation with that program? Because if I give my withdrawal authority to that, I've essentially given my validator over to somebody else who owns it now. If it's a program where I can verify the source and it's not upgradable, I can feel confident that nothing's going to happen to it. But if any of those conditions aren't met, then I've essentially just given my validator away. So can you talk about that? Yeah,
we have similar conversations with people running program upgrades as well. As it stands right now, the code is all open source. And our squad's program that we've launched on mainnet is effectively run, owned, and operated by a squad's multi-sig. So we have a multi-sig that controls squads itself. But in these types of situations, you can deploy your own version of squads, and we could effectively support a white labeled version of a UI to do effectively all the same thing. So this is the concept, and that's a really good concern, right? Because you want to have total control over it. So you could effectively deploy your own, make it immutable, and then just roll your own UI, and we could assist with that if need be.
And that's up until the moment, because right now we're formally verifying the program, so we don't want to freeze it and then complete the formal verification process. So it's going to be non-upgradable at some point. It's kind of conditional on AutoSAC completing it on time. But yeah, I mean, there's one option is you can deploy your own version of it and just deploy your own program and set that with authority to itself and just manage it yourself. And we can support you on the UI side. If there's any updates that we need to ship, we can update the client code. And then we're also exploring just deploying a second program that's non-upgradable for in the meantime. So it kind of really depends on. We're sort of flexible here. The conditions that you outlined are not. It's not the first time we hear them, so it's kind of up to you. If you find the tooling useful, we'll adapt it towards what you're looking for there on the sort of security side.
But can I just say one more thing? Until you have that, I really don't think you should be even advising validators to use this, because you're essentially saying, hey, just give us your validator. I mean, I know you guys, I'm sure you have every best intention, but I just don't think that's the policy that anyone should ask any other validator to do. And, until you have that nailed down, I'd maybe give examples, but I would not really, if I was you, I wouldn't even accept another validator giving me their authority in that way, because you then become sort of responsible in the end for their entire validator, because you own the program. The validator has been assigned as an authority, as a PDA of your program, and now you own it. And I personally wouldn't do that. Just my feedback.
Yeah, I mean, we understand your concern. The reason we're offering this, because we've been working with a lot of DeFi protocols. They're sort of, comfortable doing that with their programs and their treasuries, simply because, it's we're a large protocol. We're funded by, Multicoin, Jump, and Solana itself. And so there's a lot of sort of that involved. But again, there's also some teams for whom we actually deployed, their own instances. They upgraded themselves, and that's, again, we're just showing you the product flow. The actual structuring of it is very flexible. So if you want to deploy your own instance and manage that, we can support that. If you want to have the same instance that we have but unupgradable, that's also fine. So it's, again, this is flexible. We hear your point for sure.
Yeah, so maybe, so if this, if I'm hearing correctly, this comes back to essentially just the immutability issue, correct?
Oh, sorry, you're asking me? I mean, it's more than that, but it's really just a matter of, showing the correct stewardship. And that includes not really trying to ask validators to give you something, give you authority that you really shouldn't have. And your product sounds really cool, and I'm not trying to say that it isn't. I'm just pointing out that from our perspective, there's really no difference in someone trying to take over the network by trying to entice validators to give them their validator and then owning all the stake. Like, you guys may be really cool, but we can't know that. So I'm just sort of putting it out there.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's noted. Again, no intention to take over your validators, and again, that's why I mentioned that there's a lot of flexibility in terms of the structuring that you can have for this. We're just here to provide the tools. Everything's open source, so you can deploy your own instance. That's the point we're making here.
Yeah, it's great, and this is why I'm really glad we joined, because we had, come up with some ideas for the product to support this. But until we do calls like this, then we could get a better understanding of core systemic concerns, which is actually really valuable. So that can help us moving forward with this, maybe more so than just having a slick product that does this, because that's the kind of feedback that we need, really.
Okay, so assuming the program is non-upgradable, and in terms of that kind of structuring, that's satisfied. Is there anything on the product side that you think is relevant to mention here? I mean, I'm kind of opening up to everyone. Anything in the UI that you think we should display? Anything that you'll find valuable? Because I think today, Sean, if you click on the validator one, like, it's going to be what change. So change commission, withdraw rewards, and change authority. Other than that, is there anything else that you think is relevant? So anything on the product side outside of the issue that didn't bring up on the immutability?
I would say make sure that the change the vote account, or sorry, the withdrawal authority is very clear that if you do this incorrectly, you're going to lose your vote account, right? So just put a bunch of like red. Be careful with this, because one key missed or whatever could really screw up your validator.
Sean, maybe that's an opportunity to also mention how the safe authority transfer works. That you can make the old signer a member, right?
Yeah, we did something similar with programs, because that's equally scary. You could easily brick a program if you were to change the upgrade authority. So in our transaction, what we typically do is ask that the current authority be added, and then that is the one that executes the transaction, and then we force both to be signers. So the PDA that's setting the authority and the original authority are both signing. And granted, there's an extra step there where, okay, you have to take that key, whether or not it's coming from a ledger or maybe it's from the CLI, still has to become a member to ultimately execute it. But we're envisioning something very similar for this, because that's very scary.
Yeah, agreed. That makes sense.
Sean, if you open the chat to the call, there's a question, I think, that you can.
Yeah, I can read it off. So the first is from Michael. He says an ability to send notification via dialect, etc., to your delegators would be good. Withdraw authority of the stake account as target pub keys. I'm not sure. Maybe, Michael, if you want to elaborate on that aside, I'm not sure what that was about.
Yeah, Sean, but I think this can be done, right? We'd love to hear more, but I think that's something we can get dialect to.
Yeah, we're really close with dialect. We like them a lot. Another thing that we were brainstorming is we're very close with Clockwork, and it would be really great to get some feedback here about common things that could be potentially automated. We're just exploring this, and it's a similar point of friction to other transactions in general, which is just having to do them over and over again. And granted, they still would need to be approved. They could possibly be automated after approval. But anything that is happening, say, at the end of an epoch, or something that's happening on the regular that could potentially be automated, that would be great to know as well, because I think we could probably implement Clockwork's queue system for that. So I was curious if anybody had anything that they're doing constantly that they'd like to be made easier.
I just had a thought. Do you think it'd be possible to move stake out of the validator account every so often, so you're keeping it low? Instead of having to, because that's one of the things you have to manually do, is if you're generating a lot of stake, move it off your hot validator key into either your draw authority or outside.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to look into for sure. I'll make a note of that.
Okay. Any other questions? Maybe any suggestions? Yeah, I mean, because I think we're trying to understand how far we want to take this product experience specifically, because the teams that we work with, for them, what you see on the demo, that's what they sort of asked. But we were curious if you guys obviously are kind of deeper into this, so if there's anything from your end that might be relevant as well, would want to include.
So there's another comment in the chat from Michael. To Brian's question, you need the identity key to transfer funds out of it. If you can just write a cron on the validator to do this, you can just write a cron on the validator to do this. In this setup, Squads doesn't hold the identity key. Yeah, I think it would be potentially difficult for you all to hold the identity key. I'm not sure how that would work.
Yeah, that's the hot one, right?
Yeah, the hot one that
We're
lives
not
in
going
the
to be able to
validator.
do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I think if there's if there's no other feedback or questions on our end, we would love to, I don't know, whatever is comfortable, whoever's interested to help us test it and sort of get it to a place where it kind of where it's usable, and generally if there's interest to use it moving forward, then we can address various concerns that we might have on different levels. So I think we would love to set up a group, whether on Telegram or on Discord, so we can keep this sort of communication open, update you on how we're progressing on all fronts, and how that's all developing. So if that's whoever's interested, I know, Tim, what's the best way? Is there a place in Discord that everybody can share their handles, or what's the best way to coordinate this?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what we do, I can post something in Validator announcements so we can see it there. I guess there might be some coordination with Telegram, for example, depending on security settings. So also we could just continue the conversation in MB Validators. I think that'd be a good spot. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for your attention, and I mean, we're excited that we got to share this with you. And I think Sean will be, and I occasionally will drop in onto these calls more, so we'll probably see each other.
Yeah, we're a little late to the party, but this is the lifeblood of the network, so we're playing catch up, and we're really excited about it. And I think we want to get our own validator running, so this is all very relevant to us.
Maybe Sean and whoever else is going to be involved, can you put your Discords in the chat, and we can at least know who to look for in Discord?
Sure.
Yeah, Mike, and I will drop the landing page and some docs links in the chat right
Okay, well, thanks everyone. Thanks Squad's team. They are squads.so is in the link, or sorry, in the chat. The docs are there, and we've got Discord handles. I'll also post these in Validator announcements. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Oh, one more thing. Sorry, I should say the next call is going to be a late call again. So 11 p.m. PST on Thursday, 2 weeks from now. Give people a little bit of time to do some travel before the call. So Thursday, 11 p.m. PST. I'll of course post it in Validator announcements too. All right. See everyone next time.